Hello. In our last session, we discussed the syllabus of indirect taxation. I think after discussing the syllabus and the content there, now we are ready to formally start it. Before straight away going to what is GST, let us first, try to know certain fundamental things. Like, what do we mean by indirect taxation? What is the major point of distinction between DT and IDT? Let us try to first check what was the need for having GST, why the GST was required. So let us first discuss these, fundamental things before coming straight away to GST. What do we mean when we say indirect taxation? In India, broadly we have categorized taxation into two. One is direct taxation and the other is indirect taxation. What is indirect taxation? Indirect taxes are taxes which are levied on goods or services, where the payer of the tax to the government can shift this burden of payment of tax onto someone else. What are indirect taxes? These are taxes on goods and services where the taxpayer can shift his burden onto somebody else. This is the definition for indirect taxes, and it really gives a very comprehensive meaning of indirect taxation. If I give you the definition of direct tax also on the same lines which I give the definition for indirect taxes, I would say that direct taxes, they are levy on income, or maybe as professional tax, or maybe on the wealth of a certain person. And here the taxpayer, he cannot shift the burden of payment of tax onto anyone else. In direct taxes, the taxpayer would have to keep the burden of payment of tax onto himself only. He cannot shift that burden to anybody else. Whereas the main characteristic of the indirect taxation is that yes, under indirect taxes, the person who is paying tax to the government, he has the capability, he is in a situation where he can pass this burden of tax on to someone else. Who is this someone else? This someone else is nothing but the final consumer of the goods or the services. That means under indirect taxation, the ultimate burden of payment of taxes, it comes to the final consumer. Okay? Let us first write something, we are discussing what is IDT, indirect taxation. I told you that indirect taxes, they are levied on goods or services. What is the main characteristic? The main characteristic is that here the person paying tax to the government can shift the burden of tax onto someone else. He can shift the burden onto somebody else. He would not feel the pinch of paying the taxes to the government. That is the case in indirect taxes. Okay? Let me give you an example. You go to market for purchasing something. You want to purchase an article. Okay? Now the shopkeeper told you that the price of the article is, say, 550 rupees. And you know that 550, this price, it is inclusive of taxes also. Right? So when you see the value and the taxes there, you see that 500 rupees is the basic value, is the basic price for the article, and 50 rupees is being charged to you because of the taxes. Okay, so that's why you are paying 550 rupees to the shopkeeper for that article, right? Now the government would get 50 rupees as taxes, right? You are paying this money to the shopkeeper. Shopkeeper has got the obligation that he would pay this rupees 50 of tax to the government. Okay. Now please see that it is the shopkeeper who is paying 50 rupees as tax to the government, but he is not taking pinch. He is not taking the burden of payment of those taxes. Why? Because he is able to charge those taxes from you. He is able to recover that money from your pocket. It is the final consumer who has to take the burden of the indirect taxes. You got the point now? Now, under DT, these are imposed on a person's income, at times maybe on wealth. We used to have wealth tax earlier, and on professional income also. And here, the person paying tax to the government cannot shift the burden of tax onto someone else. So basically, the most important point of distinction between DT and IDT is passing on the tax burden. In DT, you cannot pass on that burden, and that is why they are called direct taxes. The person who is paying the tax would have to take the burden directly. The burden is directly onto him, and that is why they are called direct taxes. In case of indirect taxes, the person can, yes, very well, he can shift that burden onto somebody else. That is why they are called indirect taxes. This is the most prominent point of distinction between these two, direct taxes and indirect taxes, right? Now let us see some more point of distinction, some other point of differences between DT and IDT. The base and the most important point is this only. But are there any other differences? Yes, there are many. For example, in case of DT, the person would pay his tax himself to the government. There would not some other person who would pay tax to the government. In DT, for example, income tax. If my income tax comes to 2 lakh rupees, I need to pay that 2 lakh rupees to the government myself. Nobody else on my behalf would pay it. I would have to pay it myself, right? Whereas in case of indirect taxes, even though the burden is on final consumer, but the person who is making payment to the payment of tax to the government is someone else. That someone else, he may be the manufacturer who has manufactured that article, he may be the distributor, or he may be the trader, or anything, or a shopkeeper, right? But the person who is the final consumer of the article, who is taking the burden of that payment of tax, is not going to the government and making payment of that tax, right? Again, you know why they are called DT and why they are called indirect taxes. Okay. Now, point number 3. Third case, if you see, in case of direct taxes, I'll give you the example of income tax. Why? Because you have already done income tax. In case of income tax, either the income is accrued to the SSC or the SSC has already received the income. Then he would have to pay the tax, right? The accrual of income or receipt of income, it is a must. It is compulsory. If the income has not accrued to you and if it has not been received by you, obviously you are not paying tax on that kind of income, right? So you would pay income tax only when the income is either accrued to you or it has been received by you. But now please see the case of indirect taxes, right? The final consumer who is taking the burden of those tax, okay, see him and see the person who is making payment to the government. Let us suppose that X, an article, is manufactured by this manufacturer, right? Now the manufacturer, after manufacturing X, is selling it to a wholesaler, right? Say the price of X is 100 rupees and there is a tax rate of 10% on it, that means manufacturer would charge 110 rupees from this distributor. The distributor is paying him 110 rupees. Out of 110, 10 rupees belongs to the tax on it. It is the manufacturer who is paying rupees 10 to the government. Right? Now please see, the article, these goods, they have not even reached to the final consumer. Right? Still, some part of indirect taxes on it has already been collected by the government. So this is again a point of difference between DT and IDT. Okay. Now under DT there would be income tax, there would be professional tax, there used to be wealth tax. All corporation taxes are direct taxes. Whereas in case of indirect taxation, there are two very prominent taxes. One is, yes, GST, the goods and services tax, and the second one is customs. Okay. Now, we know what do we mean by indirect taxes, and since GST is one of the most highlighted indirect tax here in India now, we must know what is the real meaning, the factual meaning for indirect taxes, and now we know it. Okay. Now, moving ahead to the second part, before starting the GST, we must know why we required GST. And if we want to know why we require GST, there are 2 points, comes to the mind. And these 2 points are, point number 1, what was the pre-GST tax structure? We need to understand the pre-GST tax structure. Why? Because in that earlier tax system, there has to be something, kind of a flaw, and because of that flaw, the authorities, they felt to replace that system with a new, innovative, without a flaw system. Right? So that means not just we should know about the pre-GST tax structure, we should also know what were the drawbacks, what were the shortcomings of that system. Okay. Now it is highly, understandable that to overcome the shortcomings of that system, they would have introduced GST. That means GST would not be having those kind of shortcomings, those kind of flaws in it. Right? So let me first tell you, let me write it. I am talking about the need for GST. What was the need? Why we required GST? Okay. Now please see. Let us, I first explain you the pre-GST tax structure. To understand the need for GST, we first must know the pre-GST tax structure. Before GST, we were having a bouquet of various taxes, a bundle of various taxes. For example, on manufacturing, we used to impose central excise duty. On services, we used to provide service tax. If you are selling some articles and if your sale is an interstate sale, there was CST for that. If your sale is within a state, that means an intrastate sale, we used to apply VAT on it, value added tax, VAT. If your goods are moving from one state to another state, there was a state tax called entry tax. You would have to pay the entry tax for that. So what I mean from this is that we were having, a bundle, a bouquet of various kind of taxes which were facilitating various kinds of activities. Right? Under previous tax structure, for manufacturing, we used to have central excise duty. Now please see, when we use the word central, that means it is the tax imposed by the center. Okay. Earlier also there were taxes by the center, taxes by the state also. Right. Now, even though now it remains the same. There are taxes by the center, there are taxes by the states. Right. Central excise duty was a tax levied by center that time. Okay. Now, on services, there was service tax. Okay. There was no really service tax act for it. It was governed by the Finance Act only. Even though 1991 they started service tax, and up till 2017, right, they were having service tax. But during this all lengthy period, we were not having a service tax act. The whole gamut of service tax, it was governed by the Finance Act. Right? No problem now. Then on sales, if your sales are interstate, then in that case, CST, Central Sales Tax, would be levied on that sale transaction. If your sale is intrastate or within a state sale, in that case, we used to apply the value added tax VAT. There was entry tax. Now, this one is a tax from center. Again, this is a center tax. Service tax also is a center tax. Right? Sales, CST, center, but it used to be collected by the states. VAT is essentially a tax imposed by the states. Entry tax, again, it is a tax imposed by the state only. Okay. There were other taxes also, like luxury tax or purchase tax. But I am not going, rather deep into that. These were the major taxes in pre-GST era. Right? Now please see. On manufacturing, you need to levy central excise duty. Right? Then on service, you are levying service tax. On sales, either CST or VAT. Right? Are there any complications? Now when you see this kind of system, do you see any complications, any shortcomings, any flaw in this kind of system when you are having a fragmented tax system? For one sub activity, there is a particular tax. For another activity, there is another act. That means if you are a manufacturer, manufacturing goods, you are subject to excise duty. And then after manufacturing your goods, you would not simply keep the goods with you only. The main intention is to sell them out. When you are selling your goods, then you would have to pay either CST or you are paying VAT. Right? Your goods are moving from one state to another state. You are paying entry tax. Right? That means it was a fragmented tax structure that time. For every single sub-activity, there was a different kind of tax to be imposed on that. Right? That simply means, now I am coming to the shortcomings of that. The first shortcoming, the first flaw, shortcomings of earlier system, where we were having a bouquet, various kind of fragmented taxes. The shortcoming is when you have so many different kind of taxes, that means you need to know so many different acts, so many different laws. Right? For manufacturing, you need to impose central excise duty, so you must make yourself conversant with the excise duty part. Right? And it was rather a very big act. Right? So conversing with the entire excise, it used to be a task. Right? And then you are selling it, then you must know about CST, you must know about VAT. Even if you do not know, that means the activities related to, the formalities related to these kind of taxes, they were huge. They were huge in numbers. right? The multiplicity of the compliance, it was rather a headache that time. The multiplicity of the compliance, it makes everything complicated, right? First shortcoming which I am writing here is multiplicity of compliance. When you have so many kind of taxes, there is a different taxable event for every single duty or tax, right? Under compliance, you would have to make or keep separate set of records for excise, separate set of records for service, separate set of records for VAT and CST. Okay, not just that, for every single of these acts, you need to submit number of, periodic statements. So that means morning you are going to the excise office, evening you are running to the, say, your sale tax office, right? So different set of records, various kind of periodic statements that are to be made to central excise, to service, to your sales tax office, right? You need to file the returns, separate returns for every separate activity, okay? Then you would be having separate assessment for all these things, separate assessment for central excise, separate assessment for the service, and separate for the sales tax, right? So everything was so fragmented that it was a major loss of time, money and effort, right? Even though I highlighted this, discrepancy, this drawback, this flaw here, but still this drawback is not to be considered as number one shortfall, as number one shortcoming, as number one flaw for which GST was, initiated. It was not considered to be number one flaw. The number one flaw which was there in the earlier tax system, it was, and please note it was cascading effect. This is, the second is cascading effect. This is the number one reason why it was needed to have a new, better system of indirect taxes. The main reason of initiating and implementing GST is this reason, cascading effect. In our earlier tax system, in pre-GST era, the tax system suffered by this phenomena called cascading effect. Now, as a student, we need to know what is the meaning for cascading effect, and then why there was cascading effect in that system. Obviously, GST must not be having that kind of flaw. It is the number one reason. Having cascading effect in that system is the number one reason of phasing that out and bringing in the new GST. Okay. So what is cascading effect? In very simple way, the meaning of cascading effect is tax on tax. The meaning of this is tax on tax. Okay. The government definitely has the authority or should receive tax on the value of a certain article or on the value of certain services. There is no doubt about it. The government has the right to receive taxes, right? The value of the article or value of the services must be very appropriately worked out, and on that, whatever the tax rate is, that much of tax, it is the right of the government to receive that much tax. There is no problem. Okay. But whether the government can receive tax on tax also, if the value of a particular article is rupees 1000, 10% is the tax rate, that means the government should get, say, 100 rupees. Now, if one more tax is to be imposed on that, whether the another tax also should be computed on the base value or it should get computed on the base value plus the earlier tax. If we impose on the value which is the base value plus the tax, that means now what we are doing? Now we are taxing the tax amount also, which is not to be considered as a very healthy practice. But under those systems, under the pre-GST systems, it was inbuilt. Tax on tax was inbuilt. In many a situation, it was inbuilt. I am not saying that they were not doing anything to curb or to restrict the cascading effect. There were mechanism of input tax credit. In that time also there was mechanism of ITC, and through ITC they used to address this problem of cascading effect. But in certain situations the taxes, they were overlapping with each other, and in those situations it was such a situation that cascading effect, it was inbuilt. There was no option to really keep out the cascading effect in those situations. I would tell you what were those situations. First, understand the meaning of cascading effect is tax on tax. Okay. Now, please understand this with an example. Let us suppose that I am selling certain goods. I am a manufacturer. Okay. The value of my goods is say 1000 rupees. And the excise duty rate on that is, let us suppose, say 15%. The excise duty rate was, initially it was 16%, then reduced to 14%, then even 12%. Now, just for example's sake, I am taking a rate of 15% here. So, the value of goods is 1000 rupees. Excise duty at 15% is 150 rupees. So that means our total comes to 1150. No problem here. Now I am selling the goods. That means I need to pay, say, VAT. Let us suppose the VAT rate is, say, 10%. So now I would apply VAT. VAT on this at 10%. Now please see whether I should take this value 1000 rupees or this value 1150. If I am taking this value 1150, that means I am again putting tax at the rate of 10% on the earlier tax amount also. This is tax on tax. Now it was inbuilt. Every single invoice which was made earlier in the pre-GST era, it used to be like this only. 10% of VAT we needed to apply it where? Onto this amount and not onto the base value. Okay, so 10% of 150 comes to 115, and this is the total for that. What I am showing you here, this 115 rupees of VAT, it includes certain amount of VAT which has been computed on the basis of earlier amount of tax. If it is completely on the base value, there is no problem, it would be very justified. But some part of VAT here, it is computed by on the basis of the earlier tax amount, the earlier excise duty amount also. So this becomes a case of tax on tax, and this was the practice that time, right? Now, not just that, there are many other situations where there is the case of tax on tax or where there is the case of cascading effect. I just told you that there were a concept of input tax credit which used to serve the purpose of reducing cascading effect, right? But still, the situations where cascading effect, it was inbuilt there, those situations, number one, you cannot set off, I am talking about the earlier system now, okay, in that system, you cannot set off the excise duty or the service tax paid by you, right, to set off your output tax liability in relation to either CST or VAT. Now, to understand this, you need to understand something about ITC, input tax credit. Okay, input tax credit, it is a major concept in indirect taxation. We have a full chapter on ITC. We would study that. But now I am giving you some basis, something very basic about input tax credit. Okay. Now please see. If I paid certain amount of tax on my inputs, input means any kind of article or services I am purchasing, right, to make an output or to make an output service. Okay. So if on my input I am paying any excise duty or I am paying any service tax, right, and then I have an output and I am selling my output. On selling my output, I need to pay VAT or CST. What I am telling you is the ITC, the input tax credit system, it was such that you can use your input tax which you have already paid to adjust your output tax liability. For example, I purchased raw material for making an article called X. In purchasing that input, I paid rupees 100 of excise duty in that. Okay. Now I manufactured X. The value of X is say 1000 rupees. The excise duty is 15% on my article. That means I need to pay 150 rupees of excise duty. On the input, I have already paid 100 rupees excise. So my ultimate excise duty liability would be excise duty on output, which is 150 rupees, and the excise duty I already paid on the input, which is 100 rupees. So I would subtract 100 rupees out of 150, which is my overall, which is my gross tax liability on my output. In all, I would have to pay just 50 rupees because 100 rupees of my output tax would get set off by the excise duty I paid on purchasing my inputs. Okay. Now subtracting the input tax from the output tax, it used to be called taking input tax credit. Okay. What is the meaning of taking input tax credit? It means that I am simply able to subtract my input tax from my output tax. That means I am taking the credit of input tax. Okay, and that is why the title input tax credit. You are getting me? Now, what I am telling you is, please see, if that kind of input tax credit, this kind of scheme, this kind of concept is not there, then definitely there would be tax on tax, tax on tax, tax on tax. Because of ITC, the cascading effect was used to get reduced to a very great, to a certain extent. Okay, that means if I am manufacturing something, I paid excise duty. Now on my output, I am again need to pay excise duty. I would pay only the difference between the excise duty computed on the basis of my output value and the excise duty I paid on my inputs. Very good, no problem here. Okay, now what I told you, the first point here is that there was no set off in between the excise duty and service tax which I paid on purchasing inputs, okay, with the CST or VAT which I need to pay on the sales of my output. No adjustment between, no set off between excise duty or service tax with what? With CST and VAT. No set off was given. Under ITC that time, even though central excise duty paid on inputs can be adjusted with the central excise duty you need to pay on your output. That could be adjusted. But the excise duty or the service tax, this cannot be adjusted that time with your CST liability or with your VAT liability. Okay. Now please see second number. CST cannot be adjusted with VAT. That means on your purchases, if you paid the central sales tax and now you are selling your output within your state, you need to pay the entire VAT liability. You cannot set off your CST paid on inputs with the VAT on your output. These were the inbuilt flaws, they were instrumental in having cascading effect in that system. Okay. Obviously in GST, they have taken a very good care of cascading effect. In fact, it is said that the real essence, please note it, the real essence of GST is in mitigating the cascading effect. I would write this sentence here. The real essence of GST is in mitigating cascading effect. Okay, so that is why removing cascading effect, this is the number one point for removing the pre-GST tax structure, and it has become the number one reason for initiating and implementing GST here. Okay, so if someone asks you why we required something new as GST when we were already having, various kind of indirect taxes, and somehow they were, doing, say, satisfactory kind of work, our answer would be that in that pre-GST tax structure, there were certain situations having inbuilt cascading effect. And since cascading effect is taken as something which is irrational, which is unjustified, we need to have a new system wherein such kind of lacunas, such kind of flaws are not there. So GST is a system where you would not find these shortcomings. Okay, I have used the word mitigating in many stance, in many books. I think you would see that they have said the true essence of GST is in removing cascading effect. Are we able to remove the cascading effect 100%? The situation is that yes, to a very great extent we have removed it. So I would rather use the word mitigating rather using the word removal. So the true essence of GST is in alleviating to a very great extent the cascading effect which was prevailing in the earlier tax system. Okay. Now I think we are ready to check what GST is. Okay. There were a number of different kind of taxes. Many of these taxes have been subsumed in the GST. That means when GST is implemented, many of these earlier taxes, they were completely wiped out, they were completely replaced. They came to an end. Okay, just a second. Let us now see the taxes which were removed in the implementation of GST. What are the taxes that we removed? In pre-GST tax structure, we were having central excise duty, service tax. Now under central excise duty, there were there were duties like additional duty on textiles, additional duty on goods of special importance, so on. I have covered everything, I have included everything in this generic term central excise duty. Okay, so any kind of central excise duty, it has now been removed. In earlier pre-GST era also, alcohol was not subject to central excise duty. It was subject to excise duty, but that was state's excise duty. Okay, it was not subject to the central excise duty, alcohol, right? Still, there are certain things which are still subjected to, even after implementing GST, there are still certain goods which are subjected to excise duty. We would come on to them at the right point of time. Now I am telling you, when the GST was implemented, number of earlier taxes, they were completely removed. One, central excise duty, though I have told you that yes, the major central excise duty has already been removed, but yes, still on certain goods, still we need to apply excise duty. Okay, but the major portion, central excise duty, has already been removed. Central excise duty is removed. Okay, then service tax, yes, completely removed. No service tax now. Okay, CST VAT, completely removed. Anti-tax, gone. There was something called purchase tax. Purchase tax, it used to be levied when a registered dealer is purchasing certain goods from an unregistered dealer. That time we used to apply the purchase tax. Purchase tax, gone. Let me write the title here. I am telling you the taxes or duties which are subsumed in GST. Subsumed simply means they have taken into account while implementing GST. Okay, everything has now into GST. It is subsumed into GST. So GST subsumed, number one, central excise duty, service tax, CST VAT, anti-tax, purchase tax, and we have luxury tax. Okay, now luxury tax. There is something called entertainment tax. But you must note that in case of entertainment tax, many times it is being imposed by the local authorities also. We are not talking about the entertainment tax imposed by the local authorities. Okay, we are referring the entertainment tax which is either imposed by center or by the state. We are not referring the entertainment tax which is imposed by local entities. Okay. Now, these many taxes, and if there is any surcharge or cess onto any of these taxes, that has also been removed. That has also been subsumed in GST. Everything has gone. Everything of these has been gone with the implementation of GST. So we would say GST has subsumed these many taxes along with their surcharge or cess. Okay. Now please see, under indirect taxes, apart from GST, we do have Customs Act. Earlier also there was Customs Act. The same Customs Acts have now been continued. But under Customs, please listen to this carefully, under Customs, there were two duties. One, additional duty, and second one, the special additional duty. There were number of duties under customs, and out of all those duties there were these two duties. Number one, the additional duty, I would write it here, the additional duty of customs and special additional duty of customs. These two duties, they have also been subsumed in GST. Why they have subsumed in GST? Because they have a relation with, they have a connection with customs, right? So why they have subsumed in GST? The reason is this. The additional duty of customs, this was based on central excise. And special additional duty called SAD, this was connected with VAT, trade tax. Okay. So because of their connection with central excise and VAT, these two duties of customs, they have also removed. So how many duties, taxes are subsumed under GST? You would say, sir, this is the list. Central excise duty, service tax, CST, VAT, both. Then entry tax, purchase tax, luxury tax, entertainment tax, except levied by the local bodies. Apart from these two duties of customs, by the name of additional duty of custom and special additional duty of customs, and any surcharge or cess thereon have been subsumed under GST. Okay. Now coming to GST. What really is GST? Goods and Services Tax. GST, yes, the full form you all know is Goods and Services Tax. Okay. Now, the GST is said to be a consumption based tax. It is called the consumption based tax. So GST is referred to as consumption based tax, or many a times it is also said that it is levied. GST is levied on the destination principle. GST is a consumption based tax. It is imposed on destination principle. Now what do we mean when we say it is a consumption based tax, or when we say it is a tax levied on the principle of destination? What is the meaning for that? Now please see. When we say that GST is a consumption based tax, we mean that the state where the goods or services have been consumed, that state will have the right to collect the tax GST. I would repeat, when we refer GST as to be a tax which is consumption based tax, we simply mean that the state where the consumption of the goods or the services have been done, that state would get the tax collection, the GST collection. Okay. Now under GST there would be one part which is central GST and the other which would be state GST. Okay. We would come to it. What are all, types of GST we have. We would come to that. But just telling you this thing, what is consumption based tax? I am telling you, the state where the goods or services have been consumed, that state would get the GST, that state would get tax collection, and in the overall tax collection there would one part which would belong to the center would get that amount, and whatever belong to the state wherein the goods or services are consumed, that state would get its share of tax, right? So no other state would get the share of tax, only that state would get its share of tax where the goods or the services have been consumed. That is why we call it consumption based tax. Okay. Now this meaning of consumption based tax, let me write it first. The meaning for this is the state where goods or services are consumed shall get to collect tax. Okay. This is the reason why we call it consumption based tax. Okay. Now, if you see this meaning of consumption based tax, it is rather from the viewpoint of revenue. Whichever state, which state would get the revenue? Sir, answer is the state where the goods or services have been consumed, they would get the share of contribution, the collection of tax. Okay. Now, please note that in earlier design, the principle was the originating state. The principle was not the destination state. The principle was the originating state. The state from where the sale or the purchase transaction has been initiated, that used to get the tax. Okay. But here in GST, the destination state, the state where the goods or the services have really been consumed, that state would get the collection of tax. Okay. So from the earlier system, it is a very big, a very big change. Earlier it was on the basis of where the sale has been originated. Now it is the destination principle. It is the consumption based tax. Now please note that consumption based tax and calling it a tax on destination principle, they convey the similar meaning, the same kind of meaning. Okay. And the meaning is from the revenue point of view, that the state where the goods or services are consumed, that state would get the collection of tax. Okay. Now, if we see it from a different angle, right, I can give you another meaning of consumption based tax. Please see, I told you about indirect taxes, that the main highlighted characteristic of the indirect taxes is that the person paying tax to the government can shift on the burden to somebody else. And who is that somebody else? It is the final consumer. Okay. I gave you example that you purchased an article from a shop. You paid 50 rupees of taxes as part of consideration of that article. Okay. The shopkeeper paid this 50 rupees to the government. Okay. But the burden of that 50 rupees, it is entirely on you. The 50 rupee note has been taken out from your pocket. Okay. You who is the consumer, who is consuming that article. Now please see, let us suppose that there is a certain person who smokes. So when he is purchasing a cigarette, because he is the consumer of that article, he would have to pay the tax on that. If I am not a smoker and I am not purchasing that cigarette, no tax burden is there on me. I am not the consumer of that thing. That means what? The burden is on consumer. The person who is consuming this must take the burden of tax also. Right? So the another, viewpoint of giving a meaning to this statement, to this term, consumption based tax. Whosoever would consume it would have to bear the tax burden. Right? From the revenue point of view, what is the meaning of consumption based tax? That the state where the consumption has been done, that state would get to collect the tax. from the other general kind, of meaning of this term, consumption based tax, is the person who is consuming this article or consuming this service would have to bear the burden of tax on that. Okay. So I think with this meaning, you would rather, keep in your memory the definition of the main highlighted characteristic of indirect tax. Right? Indirect tax is what? Where the person is able to shift the burden of tax to the final consumer. And again, in consumption based tax, the meaning conveys it to you like this, that if you consume this article or this service, if you are consuming it, you take the burden. If I am not consuming it, I am not taking any burden. So it is a consumption based tax. Since GST is on either goods or services, whosoever is consuming the goods or service would really have to pay the burden. From the revenue angle, the meaning is, I have already written there. Okay. Destination principle, consumption based tax. They convey a similar meaning. Okay. Now, take it as point number 1. The second thing, they say that GST is collected on value addition. Very, very important thing. Very important thing. GST is collected on value addition. GST is collected on value addition. You charge GST on the value addition. Okay. So if you want to understand this sentence, you should know the meaning of value addition. Okay. Let me tell you, value addition, it is a very important term. In our earlier tax regime also, even those taxes, they were based on value addition concept. The GST is also based on the value addition concept. In fact, the statement is GST is collected on value addition. Okay. Now to understand this, let me give you an example here. You wish to purchase an article. Let us say that article is a copper water bottle. A water bottle made of copper. Okay. Now here is a manufacturer of copper sheet. Okay. Here is B, manufacturer of bottle. Here is C, and he is a trader. And then final here, there is you who would purchase this bottle. Okay. Now please see. This manufacturer of copper, he got his own copper mine. So he takes out certain copper ore and process it to make a copper sheet. So he is making copper sheet. Okay. The value of his copper sheet is, say, rupees 100. Okay. Let us suppose there is a tax rate of 10% on this sheet. That means if the tax is, I am telling you the meaning of VAT. Okay. By this example, we are going to understand the concept of value addition. Now, the tax is, say, 10%. I am just writing it tax here, no GST, no VAT or other things, just tax. Why? Because we are focusing on value addition only. Now, tax 10%, that means a tax of 10 rupees would be there on this sheet of 100 rupees. Okay. Now, if A sell this sheet to B, how much B would pay to A? B would have to pay 100 plus 10, 110 rupees to A. Simple. No problem here. Now please see. B now have the copper sheet. He is now processing it to make a copper bottle, right? In that processing, again, he is incurring something, say rupees 100. Okay. Please see, 100 rupees for further processing of sheet to make it a bottle, right? Then a sheet worth 100 rupees he received from A. Then his processing cost and other things comes to say rupees 100. That means now this copper bottle has a worth of 200 rupees. 100 this, 100 he incurred now. So the worth, the value of this copper bottle now is rupees 200. Okay. Again a tax rate of 10%. That means a tax of 20 rupees would be there on this bottle. Now, if B is selling this bottle to C, the trader, how much C would have to pay for this bottle? You would say, sir, answer is 220 rupees. No problem here. Okay. So at 220 rupees, this person is purchasing this bottle. The bifurcation of 220 is 200 is the value of the article and 20 rupees is tax on that. Okay. Now this person who has got a bottle worth 200 rupees, right? He wants to add his profit onto that, and which is say 50 rupees. He got something, an article of 200 rupees, and now he is adding 50 rupees. So that means the total value of the article, when the article is in his hands, becomes 250 rupees. Okay. And now he is selling this article. Again, he would have to pay tax. The tax is 10%. So tax here would be 25 rupees. Now, you come into the picture. You want to purchase this bottle. How much you have to spend on that? You would be spending 275 rupees. At this price, the consumer, you getting this bottle. Okay. Now, please see. It is very simple. You went to the market, you are asking the price of a bottle, the shopkeeper is telling you that the price is 275 rupees. The bifurcation is 250 rupees for the article, 25 rupees is the tax involved there. Okay. But when it comes to the real commercial transactions behind it, these are the transactions. Okay. First, there is a manufacturer making sheet, then there is a manufacturer converting sheet into the bottle, and then this trader who is actually selling the article to you. Okay. Now please see amount of tax involved in these transactions. First rupees 10 here, then rupees 20 here, then rupees 25 here. If we add up all those amount of taxes, it comes much more than 25 rupees. But you as a final consumer, you are having the final burden of only 25 rupees. In every single transaction, there is the involvement of tax 10, 20, 25. But as a consumer who is taking finally the overall, the total burden of the tax, that burden comes to you at rupees 25. So seems to be some discrepancy here, because overall tax is that much more than 25, but the final consumer is taking burden only of 25. So how this tax thing really happens? Now please, you should be very attentive now. Now please see here. And I am telling you the meaning of GST is computed on value addition. Please see, in case of A, he collected the copper ore, converted copper ore into copper sheet. The value of the copper sheet was 100 rupees. How much do you think this person has added on to the value of this article? You would say, sir, it is 100 rupees, because earlier, there was nothing. Whatever he made, the value of that thing was 100 rupees. So he added a value of 100 rupees to this article. The value addition by A is 100 rupees value addition. value addition by A is 100 rupees. Why I am writing 100 here? Why I write this here? Because it is a sale transaction between A and B. At 110, A sold goods to B. The same way here. Now, the value addition by A is 100 rupees. Clear? No problem here. Tax rate is 10%. So that means the tax on this is 10 rupees. Clear? Now, moving to B. In case of B, he was having an article worth 100 rupees. Okay? And then he did certain more process onto it and the value of the article becomes 200. So how much would you think that he has added to the value of this article? I think you would be giving me an answer. That's here the value addition by B is rupees 100. Okay? Once the article is processed, the overall value was 200 rupees. But when the article came for the process, that time the value of that article was rupees 100. So the value addition by B is only 100. The value addition by B is also 100. This is value addition by B is also 100. So if the value addition by B is also just 100, how much tax should be there on that? 100, the tax rate 10%, that means only 10 rupees. A also would have to pay rupees 10 as tax. B also on his value addition of 100 would have to pay tax of rupees 10. Now next, the trader received this bottle. The worth of the bottle was 200 rupees. He added something, some profit or the other things worth rupees 50 onto it. So his value addition is only rupees 50. If you receive an article worth 200 and you are selling it at 250, you are adding value only to the extent of rupees 50. So here the trader added only rupees 50. His value addition is only rupees 50. So tax on rupees 50 comes to 5 rupees. Now please see 10 here, 10 here and 5 here. This comes to 25 rupees, which matches with this. For GST, we say that GST is computed on value addition and not on the entire value, which is being held by a particular person at a particular point of time. No, GST is computed on the value addition. You're getting me? Got it? 10 rupees here, 10 rupees here, 5 rupees here. So total tax amount 25 rupees, which is borne by the final consumer. Okay, let me tell you something more here. The definition of indirect tax is the taxpayer is in a situation where he can shift the burden of tax onto somebody else. Now apply that statement here. Apply that statement here. Consider A, the manufacturer of copper sheet. What happened? He made an article worth 100 rupees. Tax on that 10 rupees and he is able, though A would have to pay 10 rupees to the government. A would go to the government and pay 10 rupees there. It is the A who is paying this tax to the government, right? But whether he is paying this 10 rupees out of his own pocket? No, because he has already charged this much from B. From B, he is charging a consideration of 110 rupees. Okay, so that means the burden of this 100 rupees is not on A, but he is able to shift that burden onto B. B is taking the burden of this rupees 10, which A is paying to the government. Clear? Now, coming to B. In case of B, on his output, the total tax amount is 20 rupees. Right? 10 he has already paid to A. Okay? Now I told you the concept of ITC, the input tax credit. Let me tell you, theoretically, on value addition, we have worked out the amount of tax, thereby the total tax is 25 rupees. Okay? But how the computation of this is done? Practically, how we compute the tax liability here? Okay? I am giving you a fair idea now, a basic idea, a fundamental, idea of ITC, the input tax credit. Okay? Please Please see, I told you that there is something called output tax. This is tax on output. Then input tax. This is tax on input. ITC, input tax credit. It is adjusting input tax from output tax. From the output tax, you are adjusting input tax. Okay? We say it that we are taking the credit of input tax. Okay? This is, I think, simple to you. Now what I am telling you is that how we do the computation. Even though the computation is there, first we worked out the value of value addition, and then on value addition we are charging the tax. But in practical world, the real commercial transactions, okay, concept wise you now know the understand, but in practical world, in real commercial transactions, how we compute it, I am telling you that. Okay, now please see, in case of A, he would raise an invoice worth rupees 110. 100 is the value and 10 is the amount of tax. So his output tax, please see, the output tax of A is rupees 10. Okay, whether he is getting any input tax credit, he is not getting any ITC because he has not paid any input tax to anybody. So no ITC. No ITC to him, that means yes, his obligation to pay 10 rupees of tax to the government. Simple, he would pay 10 rupees to the government. But he would not take the burden of it because he would charge this 10 rupees from B, or he has already charged that from B. Okay, now coming to B. What is his output tax? The value of his output is 200. That means tax on output at 10% is 20 rupees. So his output tax is 20 rupees. But because he purchased a copper sheet from A worth rupees 100 and he paid 10 rupees there, so he has got an input tax of rupees 10, and we would get the credit of that input tax. So we are now getting this as credit. That means we are subtracting rupees 10 from 20. His ultimate tax liability comes as again 10 rupees. So this much he would pay it to the government. Whether he is taking the burden of that payment? No, because he is charging it from the trader. Now coming to part C, the trader. He purchased input worth rupees 200, he paid 20 rupees as input tax. His output value is 250, tax on output value is 25, so his output tax is 25. But he has got input tax available to him. How much? 20 rupees. So he is getting input tax credit of 20 rupees. So that means he would pay to the government 5 rupees. Now 10 plus 10 plus 5, this 25 rupees essentially is coming out from the consumer's pocket. None of them is taking any burden of that payment of tax. Okay? None of them is taking any burden of payment of these taxes. Right? It would be the final consumer. It would be you who is receiving the ultimate burden of these taxes. You are getting me? So, what is the meaning of value addition? Value addition simply means the value added by a person during a particular stage of transaction of any goods or services. What is the tax on value addition? The tax rate when applied on the amount of value addition would be the tax on value addition. When we say that GST is computed or is collected on value addition, we simply means that the overall output value, even though apparently is subject to tax, but because of the concept of ITC, the tax is levied only on the value added by a person. Got it? I think with this, we started with the definition of indirect taxes. Even the definition of indirect tax, where we say the most highlighted characteristic is the ability to pass on the tax burden to somebody else, that has been explained by this instance, by this example, very well here. Right? I think the concept of value addition now, it should be simple for you. There should not be any problem to you for that. Now, this was a small introduction of GST. I would say an incomplete introduction of GST. Right? There are number of things in GST. I have just given you 2 points. Number one, that GST is called a consumption-based tax imposed on the destination principle. And second, that GST is collected on value addition. But there are number of things which we need to discuss. Okay? The other important features of GST we will discuss in our next session. I am concluding this session now. Thank you.